Hello again, everyone. This is Rexluna here from allthat'isepic.com's cosplay section, and I'm here today to show you how to read pattern jackets. I know, super duper exciting. So, for me, the most time-consuming part of a costume is usually the pattern making part of it. So, when at all possible, I try to use pre-made patterns because I'm kind of too lazy to make all of mine from scratch. And sometimes it can take a little longer to do all the altering and all the copying of the patterns from these bases, but I just prefer to do it that way. So there's a couple things you're going to need before we start going over how to read this. And the first thing is you're going to need your measurements, and you really only need your chest, your waist, and your hips. That's what's listed on these size guides. But if you really want to be thorough, you should get every possible thing you can get. If you can see, all these little lines are all the measurements that I have made. And that just saves you time in the future for any armor you might have to make, or any other patterns. Maybe it's pants instead of a dress and it asks for an inseam length, then you already have it. You're going to want a friend to help you with this if possible, because it's kind of hard to measure your legs if you're bending over and kind of messing up the measurement. Other than that, you really only need some kind of drafting paper, or what I use is tissue paper. I just go to Safeway or CVS, get a really big pack of tissue paper, because what I do is I actually trace out the entire pattern piece and make any alterations on this piece, and then cut that out and then save the original, so if I have to make any different alterations I still have the old piece, or if my sizes change I can make a different size. Of course, measuring tape, that's always super important to take your measurements and to make any alterations, so you know this needs to be 2 inches, that needs to be an extra 4, or whatever. And then of course, pen or pencil to do all your tracing. So now we're ready to go, and I'll show you how to read this. Here are a few of the patterns I have. Keep in mind that each brand is sized a little bit differently, so don't always assume that you're the same size in each pattern. That's why you should always have your measurements written down somewhere when you go pattern shopping. If you look at the top or side of each pattern, you'll see the range of sizes that are included in the pattern. Always check that you have the correct size range before purchasing. Each pattern has a size guide on the back. Simply match your measurements as closely as possible to the ones on the chart to find your size. Keep in mind that these sizes do not correspond with the normal women's dress sizes, so don't freak out if the number is higher than you expect. You can also look at the finished garment measurements guide to help you figure it out. I usually try to find the size somewhere in the middle of both of those to use as my base. After you find the size, you'll need to figure out how many yards of fabric you'll need. If you look at the front of this pattern, you'll see each image is labeled with a letter. When you flip to the back again, you'll see these matching illustrations of the back of the dress. These letters identify which variation of the pattern you are using. For example, if I was making version C, I would go to the part of the grid that shows the required pieces for the C dress. Some patterns use descriptions instead of labels, like this McCall's pattern. This one describes the type of skirt and bodice, so you can design your own dress. Now, let's get back to the grid. The dress is broken down into 2 parts, the bodice and the sleeves and skirt. This number here indicates the width of the fabric. The fabric width is indicated on the end of each bolt. You can run into a problem if the fabric width indicated on the pattern doesn't match the fabric you want to purchase. If you have a smartphone, there are apps that will calculate that for you, or you can always look online or use a chart like this. Then, you find your size on the chart, and that tells you how many yards you need for that part. If you look at the McCall's pattern, you'll see that they give you the option of 45-inch or 60-inch wide fabric in some cases. There are always asterisks next to the fabric width, and the description is explained on the bottom. This always has to do with nap. A fabric with nap would be something like fur or velvet, or a fabric with a one-way design. These kinds of fabric need to match up more precisely than non-nap fabrics, so more fabric is needed. Each pattern gives you recommended fabrics to use for each piece, but as a cosplayer, this isn't always relevant. If you're working with a complicated pattern, or if you're still new to sewing, however, this may be a good guide for you. For the Simplicity Style C dress,
The only other thing listed with the fabric is 5 1/8 yards of 7/8 inch wide trim. The rest is for the dog costume, and we aren't worried about that. Now, we're still not finished. The notions are always listed at the top. In this case, each dress requires thread, a 22-inch zipper, and 1 hook and eye. Dress C doesn't require any other notions, but we're still not done. You should always scan the pattern and look for the label that goes with the piece you're making. In this case, if we keep looking, we see that our dress requires 3/4 yards of 20 to 25-inch light fusible interfacing, as well as 5/8 yards of bodice lining.
Alright, well, I hope that helped you guys. I'll be coming back in the next few weeks sometime to actually go over how to read the markings on the patterns and the instructions, so keep an eye out for that. But until next time, check out allthat'sepic.com for more cosplay stuff, and I'll see you next time. Bye!